Welcome to InTouch, dedicated to real estate professionals worldwide. We're here to educate you, entertain you, and empower you in all facets of real estate. Are you ready for the latest news, trends, and market updates? Then it's time to get in touch. One of the best things that a professional can ask the first time they communicate with either a client, another associate, a broker, what's your preferred method of communication? Because then you are simply figuring out the best way to get a hold of that person. Without asking, you're simply doing what's natural for you and what's convenient for you. And that's all well and fine. But if they don't prefer to communicate like that, you're going to have a big problem. If anybody knows me in my personal life or is working at our organization, they know I don't text. So if they send me a text, it's going into cyberspace. And if they never asked or read when they onboarded my preferred method of communication, which is typically visual communication or audible or meeting people on a Zoom call, then they're going to think, oh my gosh, he must just not care. He's not responding to anything. Well, no, it's just because I don't text. So I know that's different in today's day and age, but that's why it's so critical to ask whenever you meet someone and never assume what is their preferred method of communication. Now, in my opinion, the highest form of communication is video communication. And this is because you can combine visual, written, and audible communication at the same time. And in my professional opinion, television, online video streaming, and film have the most impact on shaping our minds in modern day culture. So if you choose to communicate visually, treat your communication as if you were producing a professional network television series or news broadcast show. And I know that might feel overwhelming. You say, well, I don't have the equipment. I don't have the time. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the technical expertise. But in today's day and age, your iPhone, your Galaxy Samsung, I mean, my gosh, it doesn't take much anymore. It's incredible the quality of video that can be produced with a simple stabilizer or something to hold the device, and then get your audio right. Get a good microphone, get a little lavalier mic, and figure out all this stuff is available on YouTube and online. You can do a quick download and education and become someone who's capable of producing really, really high-end content for very little money. Now, if you believe that visual communication does not come naturally to you, then I would consider writing, like we talked about. If you're doing visual communication, audio is going to have to come natural because part of video is audio. But if neither one of those really suit you and you don't like either the way you sound on camera, the way you look on camera, you don't like the lights, you don't like the production, but you're a great writer, well, consider writing. Go deep into that writing. And if you do have a pleasant voice, I would strongly consider communicating audibly. This is an opportunity for you to express yourself in a longer format, people to get to know you before they actually get to know you. And once again, if you do have that skill to communicate visually, remember the eyeballs are watching. Today's modern day minds have been trained to be attracted to all these mediums, but specifically to visual mediums. And that's why YouTube is so successful. So let's talk about defining your communication style. Gary, you have a communication style that's very unique. It's lighthearted, humorous, it's entertaining, but it's knowledgeable and has wise counsel all at the same time. And I want to encourage the listeners because each one of us has a unique style of communication. And my question to you is, what is yours? And if you don't know what that is, today's the day to start thinking about, what is my style? So clearly defining your style will help you attract the people you desire. And if you're a fast talker, you're going to have a hard time communicating with people who move slowly. Conversely, if you are slow and methodical in your speech, pursuing impatient or impulsive listeners would not be wise. The key is to identify a target market that responds the same way as you communicate. So it's back to our rule number 2, identify your target market. Equally important is the style of consistent communication. For example, the tone of your voice and pace of your conversation should always remain the same. That builds dependability and consistency in the relationships you develop. So, in essence, be yourself. Don't try to be one person when you're in business and another person in your personal life. Just be you. And whatever that style of your communication is, embrace it. It may need to be polished and modified slightly, but it's you. That's who you are. And you're really just seeking out audience members in a target market that appreciates the way that you communicate, and most likely they communicate the way that you communicate. So, Gary, let's talk about your target audience. We've talked about initial contact and following up, but when you think about your ideal client, what is that persona?
Well, my ideal client will be a long-term relationship. So I usually know after I've sold th that particular client a home or an investment property, if I will be making multiple uh, investments for them in the future. Will this be a client that's going to be around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? I do have some clients that have been around that long, and I still talk to them, and they still want to know, hey, what's going on with the market? What's the next thing that we should buy? Should we stay in our home? Should we move? Should we upgrade? So I think, following up with that long-term client and putting them in your book for whatever it is, a Christmas call or mine is more, I'm going to call that person and see how they're doing, how their family's doing. Yeah, I'll send them a card, but most of my communication is trying to get that person to have a cup of coffee and face-to-face activities. I use Instagram as another form of communication, just because I can post something on a story, make it quick, and if it's a picture, whatever it is, me fishing, whatever it is, I'll get tons of reactions to that versus, hey, I've got a new listing or something coming up. They tend to not really care about that, even though that's what I do. I will throw that in there so they don't forget that I do sell real estate in the local area, but that's not really what they care about. They want to see what I'm up to and what I'm doing. So that's my goal, is to just keep in contact with them, whether it's a phone call or even a picture. I'll usually get a phone call back. Oh, hey, I saw you were down at that lake. We were just down there. Or I see you were eating that particular poke place last week. What did you think of it? So anything that I can put up where I'll get a response back, either by through Instagram, or I don't use Facebook that often. Just like Andrew, you don't use text. I don't really like Facebook, but I will post up there so people know that I'm alive, but that's about it. Um, so find the best way that you can effectively communicate with people. Uh, Text, Instagram, calling them up, meeting them in person, and put it in your calendar. Set a time, um, and always follow up.
The fact that you use the word goal, because people think about goals. They think, oh, my goal is to meet this amount of people and then make this amount of sales. And okay, but there's a big middle part that people forget, and that's the follow up. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that's the number one reason I see people fail, is because of a lack of follow up. And those who follow up well end up thriving. And as you said, this is my goal with the follow up. So there's actually an aim, right? You're actually trying to achieve something with your follow up. And your aim when following up is to develop relationships. That should be your aim, is to further the relationship. Because if they're ready to transact, well, then you're going to move forward to make an appointment at step 3, and you're going to move forward to step 4, which is, conduct the presentation, and move forward to step 5, which is get into a transaction with them. But that's when they make the decision, they're ready to move forward. And this is the most challenging part that I've seen in the sales cycle for people, because what do you do when someone is unwilling or not ready or needs to have a circumstance happen before they can move forward. And this is where you find yourself in step two, the follow up. And having those creative ways to follow up that are intentional, that are consistent, disciplined on your calendar, having good conversations, keeping it fresh without being annoying. That is the secret to building that long lasting clientele. Now, the challenge we have today is that you can't always build relationships deeply through sending a text or an email. It's best to connect on the phone or better yet in person, like you've been talking about. And whether it's simply inviting your lead or contact or client to the coffee shop or take them to lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever that is, the key is to be in person with them as often as possible. And as we get further into this teaching and training, I will address those hyper successful people that don't have the time to get together face to face with each and every one of their clients because they've been so successful that they just don't have enough hours in the day. That's a good problem to have. And we'll address what to do once you get to that point. But for those of you who are communicating with written methods and you do your text, but you're going to go ahead and follow up with your newsletters or communicate with your clients primarily by email, my suggestion is simply this: keep your emails short and to the point. No one wants to read a love letter in business. My suggestion is 100 words or less in 2 or 3 paragraphs, and end your emails with a compelling question or with a call to action to monitor engagement and response. Because if you find yourself sending a lot of emails and texts without any response, you are communicating a message that yields no fruit. And the longer the email is, the less chance people are actually going to read it. Today's inbox is bombarded with so much information. People typically they don't go there, and they figure if someone really knows me, they're going to text me. And obviously short code and text has become the norm. So just keep that in mind with your emails. And remember this: every time you communicate, your reputation is on the line. Any communication that you plan to distribute to a wide audience should be reviewed and edited by multiple parties before the final iteration is released. That could be a colleague, a spouse, a friend. Get some other eyeballs on anything that you plan to distribute to a wide audience. Even if it's a newsletter, it's just going to your clients. Typos and punctuation or sentences that don't quite make sense, that all speaks to your reputation, whether you realize it or not. And because people are now texting and vocabulary and word choices are becoming more limited, I would really be focused on any wide communication to make sure that it's not only concise, but clearly communicated and professional and without error. Remember, professional communicators, they rehearse before they deliver, and they use emotional intelligence to monitor the reaction of the individual they're speaking with. They're sensitive to nonverbal cues and body language, and they can adjust what they're saying on the fly. So you want to be able to do the same thing. And although you don't have that advantage when you're speaking with someone over the phone, well, you do have this advantage when speaking to someone via video conference. Therefore, watch for the rolling eyes, the shrugging shoulders, the changes in facial expressions. This will help you understand what your prospect is thinking during your communication. And finally, stay focused. Remain on course with your communication. Engage the other party, if necessary, with short stories and examples, but make sure they're in tune. You haven't lost them. And be sure to repeat yourself often, but not too often so that you're overly redundant or annoying. So, Gary, let's talk about your style of communication. You're sitting down with a client. You've engaged them. You obviously use humor and stories to keep them engaged. But what are some of the methods or tactics that you use to make sure that people don't eat up your valuable time? Because when you do start developing these relationships with people and you're good at it, there's a good chance people want to hang out with you and spend 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and they may or may not want to transact anytime soon. They may be lonely and they just want a friend to hang out with. So where do you draw those boundaries to make sure that you're staying focused and bringing the conversation back to business?
Well, most of my clients are in business or they're professionals, so they do value time. So luckily, I don't have to cut people short and say, hey, well, it's time to go because I'm directing that conversation and directing them down a path of where they need to be. We'll take, for example, yesterday I had a client call me. He needs to sell his house. We put a timeline together. It's not going to be this year, but I said, here, this is what needs to be done. I've already previewed the home. I know it looks fantastic. So now it's going to be timing of when to sell the home and how much time he needs. And is he going to be in the house? Is it going to be vacant? So we pretty much set up a plan and we know when we're going to be talking next. So we went through and we discussed everything that needed to be discussed. And then I said, okay, well, our next appointment is going to be in January after the elections, after all the holidays, and we're going to discuss what the market is going to be at that time because it makes no difference of what price that we have in our head today. January is going to be a different price, different market. Could be a buyer's market, could be a seller's market, could be both. So now we have a date. Calling back in, January 2nd, 3rd. We'll discuss what the market looks like, and then we'll put together a plan. And so, even though we're friends and is a long time client, he knows I'm not, wasting his time. He is in the medical field, so I could tell he was doing things in the background while I was talking, and preparing for his next patient. So, uh, you do have to be respectful of people's time, and you usually can ask them up front, hey, do you have a few minutes? Is this a good time to talk? Oh, yeah, it is. I do have about 5, 6 minutes. Okay, well, then we'll end that conversation in 5 to 6 minutes, not 15 to 20. So just be respectful of people's time. Ask them how much time they have. And if you can tell in the background that they're in a hurry or getting in a hurry, then end the conversation with, okay, well, we'll talk next time. I'll talk to you in January, which basically means I'll talk to him in December, but it will be a January call and a plan of action to sell his home and move to his next uh, state that he's going to. So just make sure you're clear, make sure you have enough time, keep it casual, and make sure you talk about their family. Always asking about somebody's family and how their kids are doing or their spouse is doing is always a way to keep the conversation relaxed and you know, keep your objectives out there and know what you need to say. Be clear and specific, and then move on.
Very good. And it shows you care. It shows you care by asking those questions and really care. That's one of our rules that we'll address later on. So, communication takes many different forms. And as we wrap up today's episode, I want to talk about these different forms because we've been talking about verbal communication, visual communication, audible communication, written communication. But things like the clothes you wear when you show up on an appointment communicate something about you. The car you drive, the stores you shop at, the friends you keep, all say something about you. Every visible item that surrounds you tells who you are and what preferences you have. And this will lead to assumption by others, whether you like it or not, whether you live on one of the coastlines or in the middle of America. The sad fact is, people make assumptions and judgments just based on what they see. And the same goes for business, whether it's in your personal life or business. The first glance at your website, your business cards, your advertisements, and the colleagues you surround yourself with, they all communicate a message to the consumer. So something as small as the font you choose to write in, or as significant as the brand you choose to represent, speaks volumes about who you are as an individual and a professional. So keep this in mind and choose your colleagues wisely. Think of it like politics. When you think of a Republican, what do you think about? When you think of a Democrat, what do you think about? There are presuppositions already embedded in your mind about someone's beliefs if they claim a particular political party. Now compare this to business. If you're with a particular firm or in a particular industry, you have a reputation, whether you like it or not. And if you look at the professional totem pole, you will find that people seem to believe certain professions are more honorable and trustworthy than others. For example, teachers and doctors tend to lead the list as respected professionals. Yet, used car salesmen and attorneys tend to be at the bottom of the list. So, right off the bat, even if you're an ethical and honest used sales car person or attorney, you have a challenge to overcome. The public perception is that you may not be 100% honest. Therefore, part of your communication will be to overcome the stigma that's attached to your industry. And real estate is right there. It's right there with attorneys and car salesmen. They don't quite believe, the general public, that real estate people are transparent, moral, and ethical. So you have that challenge to overcome right off the bat. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you're a doctor or a teacher, you're already respected, but automatically held to that higher standard. So regardless of your profession, consistently emphasize what makes you different and why someone should do business with you and trust in your product or service. And finally, great communicators are not afraid of conflict. Difficult conversations scare most people, but not a great communicator. Conflict is a normal part of the business world. The big question is, how do you respond to conflict? If you're a professional communicator, you're able to navigate conflict in a cool, calm, collected manner, working toward a solution. By the next day, you will have forgotten about the conflict. But if you struggle with communication, conflict can quickly turn into arguments that can turn into lost clients and possibly lawsuits. So deep wounds are generated from conflicts that may paralyze you as a professional and even result in depression. You may hang on to these conflict wounds for days, weeks, or even years and replay them in your mind over and over again. And if this is commonplace for you, I highly suggest seeking out professional help to learn how to detach your personal emotions from your professional life. Easier said than done, but separating your business life and your personal life, although it's not easy, it is vitally important for your sustained mental health. Remember this: fearless, honest, and transparent communication will protect your mental well-being. This leads us to our paycheck principle number 6. Clear, concise communication wins hearts. So let's wrap up with our path to progress and shaping our character. What would help us with clearly communicating? Well, it's a standard of excellence at the end of the day. So as you reflect on the ways to share your ideas without ambiguity, consider how excellence will help you master this rule. No one wants to work with a poor communicator. Confusion abounds. Those in business who do not master their communication skills lose the race before it begins. So we've talked about this. If visual communication is your thing, great, go with it. If it's written, go with it. If it's audible, go with it. But whatever you do, set a high standard of excellence for yourself when you're communicating. You can find countless resources to improve your vocabulary, expand your word choices, and master the art of communication in style and grace. And my last word of warning is simply this: do not fall victim to allowing artificial intelligence to do your writing or thinking for you. Learn how to write compelling messages beyond shortcode and text and social media. Learn all the formats of communication so that you can be versatile with your clients and respond to them in their preferred method of communication. And last but not least, as we talked about many times today, don't pester people or be annoying. Use emotional intelligence. Study the body language of your counterparty while you're communicating. Pick up on those social cues and read the room with situational awareness. If you do, things will go well with you. Now, as we talk about mastering your BS, which we've concluded all these rules with, which is mastering your behavior and skill, I'm going to leave you with just a few words that come out of Scripture. And that is, desire to be a wise person that does not use many words. Choose mild answers to turn away anger. Decide to avoid corrupt speech. The result is your honest answers will be like a friend's greeting. And the promise is the more words you say, the less meaning they have. And words of wisdom that come out of Proverbs say, the lips of the wise give good advice. The heart of a fool has none to give. Now, here's a few questions to meditate on this week. What is your style of communication? Do you communicate clearly? Do you communicate consistently? And what areas of your communication need improvement? And your call to action is simple. Speak wisely, use few words, stay consistent, and communicate clearly. We hope the episode has blessed you, and we will catch you next round for rule number 7.